everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and look, we're going to be talking about pro wrestling. That's what we do here every week, every Tuesday night when we record this on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, live 7 p.m. Eastern. If you ever want to drop by, you're obviously watching this on demand, so you weren't able to make it to the live show, which isn't, I don't blame you. It's fine. It's a commitment, but the important thing is that you're here, and that's what matters most. Thank you very much for showing up for more wrestling talk again this week. If you are new here, well, a subscription on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes would be tremendous, or a follow on your favorite podcast application as well. Even on top of that, if you want to leave a like on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify, that would all be tremendous and helps continue to grow the podcast. And again, that would also be tremendously appreciated. You can also join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord if you want to talk more pro wrestling discourse and, well, not discourse, but have discourse about pro wrestling. The link is in the description. We would love to have you. That being said, tonight's episode is, I don't want to call it experimental because that would raise the bar too high, but I'm trying some stuff out. I'm tinkering with the idea of the podcast, and it won't be very perceptible, but tonight I had some topics, but it was very free form. If you were there live, you know exactly what I mean. It was a very loose type of show. Maybe it'll come across like that for the podcast. I tried to keep it nice and succinct and tight for the podcast because you don't want to be listening to a replay of a live stream. That's not what you're here for. Just keep in mind that, I'm trying some stuff out, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how things go. But there's no big changes. But look, tonight, of course, we're going to talk about Kevin Sullivan passing away. There's some Janel Grant news. And I want to talk about Bryan Danielson. There's no huge big news this week, so there's a bunch of little things. Look, let's just get to it. All right. Thank you very much for being here. Let's hop in. To start off the podcast officially tonight, we are going to start a bit on a somber note because on August 9, just a few days ago, we learned that legendary wrestler and booker Kevin Sullivan had passed away at the age of 74. Sullivan had been in hospital fighting for his life for the past few weeks, after maybe even a couple of months on top of that, after complications from an emergency surgery. A while back, his family had announced that he was in intensive care following a devastating accident, as they had specified, which happened in May. Sullivan underwent an emergency surgery that saved his leg, but he faced severe complications, including sepsis and encephalitis. Sullivan was born on October 26, 1949 in Massachusetts, in Cambridge. He started wrestling basically untrained up in the northeastern U.S. and even into Quebec a little bit. He headed to Florida in 1972 after spending about a little over a year in Tennessee. Proved to be exactly what his career needed, because in Florida he worked under Eddie Graham, who would become a huge influence on him on more than one way. And he did good. Sullivan had so much natural charisma and capability that even at 5'9", which didn't make him a big dude, he was still able to work with big guys. Billy Graham was a guy that it was said that Billy Graham liked to work with him. And he'd worked with other guys in the WWF when he wrestled there from 75 to 76, who were much more mountainous, big guys. We're not talking 80s roided up guys. We're just talking they were usually bigger guys. And yet, despite the fact that he was well under 6 feet, he was able to do a lot there. He'd start getting a lot of buzz, playing off of the Satanic Panic back in the 80s, when he became the Prince of Darkness, Kevin Sullivan, right? This cult-like figure. He started that up in Championship Wrestling from Florida around the mid 80s, right? 1984, 85. But I guess I would wager that Kevin Sullivan is best known for his time in WCW. That started, he really starting in 1994 when he was there as both a non-screen performer and there as a booker as well. On screen, I'm sure a lot of people, even if you didn't watch it back then, even if you weren't alive necessarily to watch WCW back in the mid 90s, I'm sure everyone remembers the Dungeon of Doom. Well, that was one of his ideas. It was his brainchild to create a monster factory for Hulk Hogan, which was how Hulk Hogan had been booked in the WWF previously, right? Where we just churn out the heels one after the other, right? You'd go, from Bad News Brown to King Kong Bundy. I'm not saying in this particular order, but we'd go like that. There would always be like this mountainous heel that Hulk Hogan would have to overcome. So basically, he was the taskmaster. Who answered to the master of the Dungeon of Doom, and he assembled a rogues gallery of villains for the heroic Hulk Hogan to overcome, which included Kamala, the Barbarian, Zodiac, right? Of course, that a lot of us might remember as Brutus Beefcake, or the Butcher, or the Disciple. So he was in there as well. John Tenta was also in this, known as Shark. Loch Ness, the Yeti, Meng was also in this. Big Bubba Rogers and the Giant. So all of these people came through this Dungeon of Doom gimmick, which not a lot of people consider this to be WCW's most shining moment. In fact, it's kind of considered corny, and it was kind of corny at the time. Some interesting decisions were being made, but nonetheless, memorable stuff when you do see it. He was also involved in Brian Pillman's loose cannon gimmick, including the famous "I Respect You, Booker Man" promo that Pillman cut at Super Bowl VI. And of course, he was in the program with Chris Benoit, where he, people like to say he essentially booked his divorce. If you don't know how that one went, Sullivan was married to Woman, or Nancy Sullivan. She came to WCW with Sullivan, if I'm not mistaken, and she would leave Kevin Sullivan in storyline to align herself with Chris Benoit, and to really put over the realism of the thing. Sullivan arranged it so that Benoit and Nancy would travel together and really push the idea that they were a real couple. Some real old time kayfabe stuff, right? And in time, as things progressed, Nancy and Benoit sort of took a liking to each other, and we all know how that ended up. Nancy ended up leaving Kevin and divorcing him, in fact. So that's where it kind of comes from, where people like to quip that Sullivan booked his own divorce here. Sullivan was also involved in the creative behind Hogan's turn at Bash at the Beach. So that's also something impressive. And Goldberg's debut. He saw the potential in Goldberg. He sort of decided to go the pure route with him. I think Sullivan even wanted to compare him to a Mike Tyson deal, right? I think that's where, if I remember correctly, I think that's what where the inspiration from Goldberg came, was that Mike Tyson would get in the ring and knock out a guy in 11 seconds. It would be the same kind of thing. Have Goldberg come in and just destroy dudes within a short amount of time. And he was in charge of booking until 1998, when Kevin Nash took over for a stint, a little spin, until 1999, and that's when Vince Russo and Ed Ferreira came in. So he was no longer in charge, but he was still around, and was a part of the committee that was put in place in 2000, at least until Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff were asked to come back. And I think he ended up leaving in 2001. After that, sporadic appearances, lots of shoot interviews. But Kevin Sullivan leaves behind a legacy of understanding the pro wrestling business like a lot of people would love to have. Like any booker, he had successful ideas. Some didn't quite work out as well, but was definitely there to try out stuff, to make things happen, and often regarded as one of the most creative minds in the wrestling business, and who really did help shape an entire era of pro wrestling, if only because of how involved he was in the Hulk Hogan turn at Bash at the Beach. So I'm sure you'll read some, you maybe even already read, maybe you read and hear more about Kevin Sullivan's accomplishments from much more verbose people than I am in this regard. But nonetheless, a true to form wrestling legend, disappearing off the face of the earth, Kevin Sullivan, at age 74. So may he rest in peace. We have ourselves a Janel Grant lawsuit update, folks. We excited about that? It's more stuff coming. Because as it turns out now, there was a look. Let's walk through it. The recently, as you recall, Grant filed a petition in Connecticut court to obtain medical records related to her treatment at Peak Wellness with Dr. Carlin Coker, which of course she alleges was arranged by McMahon, and that she wasn't quite sure what the nature of the treatments she was on the receiving end of were. Attorneys for Coker and Peak Wellness have since filed an official complaint in regards to Grant's petition, alleging that it is part of a smear campaign. So like we said, the petition, this happened on August 7th, where Coker filed the official complaint in response to Grant's petition. And this is, let's just read directly from the complaint. Quote, Grant is engaging in a smear campaign against Coker and Peak Wellness in order to bolster her well-publicized allegations concerning alleged sex trafficking and sexual assault. Which is a weird thing to say, like, to get publicity for herself. I always think that's a very fine line to go after. But anyway, nonetheless, the complaint also asks that Grant, quote, provide information concerning her activities in intentionally fostering patent lies and material misstatements related, unquote, related to her treatment at the clinic, and that this information could potentially be used in legal action against her. Plaintiffs believed, in this case, Coker and Peak Wellness, believe that this information shall provide ample basis for claims by plaintiffs against Grant for, among other things, defamation, tortious interference with business relations, and negligent and intentional infliction of emotional distress on Dr. Coker. Of course, the complaint denies any wrongdoing in regards to her treatment. Now, it's important to remember in this circumstance here that Coker and Peak Wellness are not named as defendants in Janel Grant's lawsuit against Vince McMahon, WWE, and John Laurinaitis, nor are they defendants in the federal investigation as well, as far as we know so far. And of course, a spokesperson for Vince McMahon, when contacted for a statement, said that this was in violation of the court-ordered stay. Now, the main difference here is that McMahon's petition, remember, they had filed a petition to try and stop this last week, but they did it on the federal level, and federal judge shut it down because he said the federal court doesn't get involved in state affairs. This is on the state level, so it's not our thing. Coker's petition here is done in state court, just to be sure. It is being done in Connecticut, but is not challenging the stay. This is important. This is not something where they're challenging the states, just like, no, this kind of stinks. Then on August 12th, yesterday, as we're recording this every Tuesday, Grant filed a motion to strike the verified complaint that Coker and Peak Wellness filed in the Connecticut Superior Court in order to dismiss Coker's bill of discovery in its entirety, while also seeking, quote, an award for the statutory sanctions, costs, and attorney's fees against plaintiffs, unquote. Grant's side called this a desperate and brazen attempt to silence a former patient investigating wrongdoing related to her medical care. That was a quote. Grant argues that the complaint by Coker failed to establish claims upon which relief could be granted and is an infringement on her First Amendment right of free speech to report on a matter of public health and concern. Interesting. I feel it's a bit of a stretch, but nonetheless, pull out all the arguments you need. Get the Constitution involved. Okay. Grant is seeking damages against Coker and Peak Wellness for bringing the bill of discovery without any probable cause listed and calling it, quote, a malicious intent unjustly to vex and trouble Ms. Grant, unquote. So that's basically that's basically what we're talking about here. So interesting stuff. So interesting stuff to happen once again. I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to understand American law from top to bottom. Absolutely not. I would assume that this is all like your normal levels of legal wrangling if you get drawn into this. At this, how much posturing is it? I couldn't say. But as opposed to McMahon's filing to remove the stay, to challenge the stay, which we all kind of assumed wouldn't work because they're working on two different levels of legal, from the federal to the state. This might actually have some teeth to it. We might have some bucking of heads. However, important to note that it's important to note nonetheless that the stay isn't being challenged here. So it's not a question of whether or not it's going to be lifted and the civil lawsuit will continue. That's not what's being charged here. Coker is just like, no, this shouldn't be happening. And also another little thing of note here that was pointed out by Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. Here's your weekly plug. Brandon says Grant's attorneys confirmed the identities of some of the pseudonyms in the federal complaint filed in January against WWE, Vince McMahon, and John Laurinaitis. And you remember, we had corporate officer number 1, corporate officer number 2, so on and so. You remember that, right? We talked about it here. A lot of people talked about it. A lot of people memed on it. It was fine. And in this situation here, there was the celebrity doctor and the alternative clinic, if you recall. Well, Grant's attorneys did confirm that Dr. Coker is the anonymized celebrity doctor, and Peak Wellness is indeed the the alternative clinic that was mentioned in the lawsuit. The physical therapist, which is another anonymous person in here that still hasn't been identified, the physical therapist refers to a Peak Wellness employee who allegedly participated in sexual abuse against her with Vince McMahon. So there's still one identity that still hangs in the balance right now that we don't know of. So again, interesting stuff. More developments, and we will continue to follow this story as it goes along, because it's a huge story and everyone should be on this all the time. Let's talk contracts. Why not? What else are we going to talk about? It's just one of those weeks. We got some interesting contract news that's been popping up right and left over the past week or so. Let's start with Randy Orton, who reportedly signed a new 5-year deal with WWE. According to Fightful, Orton recently signed a 5-year contract to remain in the company. A WWE source reportedly said the shift to guaranteed money is why a new deal was reached, rather than extending Orton's previous one, which was agreed to in 2019. This is what the source reportedly said to Fightful. Quote, "The guaranteed money associated with contracts is now a drastic shift from when it was in 2019. There have been changes to our live event schedule, touring, international dates, media obligations, merchandise, and social media that would be much more fair to just reach a new deal in many situations." So isn't that interesting? So Randy basically was like, I'm doing more work. You're putting me out there more. I'm doing, all sorts of stuff instead of just hitting the ring. And so, guarantee me some money then. Good for him. He's going to be 49 years old when his contract expires. 2029. He's going to be 49. So, look, hey, how can you not be happy for the Viper? Another guy who rejiggered his contract was LA Knight, who reportedly restructured and extended his contract. Again, this is more news from Fightful, who reported that over the course of the summer, Knight restructured and extended his existing WWE contract for both a, quote, large money increase and significant time, unquote. His original deal was set to expire in 2025, and the two sides have been reportedly negotiating as far back as the fall 2023. So he decided, when he was at truly the peak of his powers, right? Because everyone was into LA Knight last year, right? Especially during the summer and all of that. He basically, going into the fall, that would have meant he would have had his main event, his Saudi main event with Roman, right? So he's at the top of his powers. People are doing the thing everywhere. So he's like, okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna renegotiate. Like, that's a businessman to me. I cannot but not respect that kind of hustle. I'm not the biggest LA Knight fan. I think he's very mid. However, and I'm on the record, I thought his match at SummerSlam was tremendous. I thought it was very good. But I'm not the biggest Eli Drake guy. I think he's a fine little wrestler. So whatever money he's making right now is oodles above what he should be making, and good for him. And I don't mean that. I kind of do mean that as a slight, but not that much of a slight, because he's the guy laughing all the way to the bank right now. So good for him if he's got all of this stuff set up. It's wild when you think that in 4 years ago, in 2021, think about this. Put this in your brain noodles. In 2021, Eli Drake was on the NWA. He was part of the NWA. And look at where he is today. And that is just a testament to patience and hustle, because Eli Drake's been doing this for years. So this is patience. It's waiting for the right opportunity. It's grabbing the opportunity when it presents itself, and he's not letting go. I see in the chat we're comparing him to a 2024 version of Mr. Kennedy, and I agree with that, but he's a mishmash, because there's the Mr. Kennedy, there's the Stone Cold, and there's the Dwayne Johnson in there as well. Like he's a pâté of all of that stuff. Une rillette de lutteur, de catcheur, une rillette de catcheur. Clip that. So good for him. Good for him. And this is a guy who's benefited tons from Vince being gone. There's that one was for you, Lika, to be completely honest. Like this is a guy who also benefit tremendously. He's he's a guy who benefited with Vince leaving the company, like tremendously. I don't know where. Don't forget, this was Max Dupree. Remember that? Yeah, of course you do. Yeah. Bobby Stevenson is officially a free agent. What was it like? Was it a month ago or a little over a month ago? We had mentioned this on the here on the show. It was revealed that Damon Kemp, right, his NXT name, was departing the promotion with WWE deciding not to renew his contract. I don't know if you remember that. And his deal was officially up on the 12th of August. And Kemp tweeted it out saying, quote, "As of today, I am no longer contracted with WWE. I want to wrestle anywhere and everywhere." And then he dropped his social media, not his social media, but his email address, his booking address, which is Damon Kemp Management, MGMT, right? At gmail.com. And I'm like, did you really? Management? You've got your team on this, Damon? Damon, did we? I mean, look, I know this, of course, is Gable Stevenson's brother, as we all recall, and I think the overall feeling was that Bobby was picking up pro wrestling much better than his brother, who everyone seemed to believe was going to be the next big thing, because he was such a powerhouse, probably the best amateur pro wrestler ever produced in the United States, right? I think that's what we're going with. And Kemp, or his Bobby, as opposed to Gable, was also an amateur wrestler, but not as severely talented as his brother, but was picking the pro wrestling game up a lot more. And a lot of people saw some potential here, but for some reason it didn't work out. For some reason, WWE cut their losses and were like, no, okay, we'll thanks, but no thanks, you know. And like I said back then, and like I said during their previous cut of NIL people, right? We're going to be seeing a lot more frequent releases from NXT, because, you know, the NIL program that they have set up is basically conducive for that. If you have people who, after multiple years hanging around developmental, like Donovan Dijak, if you have people hanging around for years upon years upon years and you're not using them, then you cut them 6, 7, 8 years after being added to the, like, that's not cost efficient. It's not cost efficient for you as the promoter, but also as the kid who's waiting for his opportunity, who's like, put me in, coach, but coach doesn't want to is making you bench, So the idea here, if they don't see immediate development, then just cut your losses and move on, right? You should be focusing on a guy like Obafemi, or you should be bringing in more people to try and find that next diamond in the rough that you can mold into something, right? As opposed to like an Obafemi, for instance. So maybe, they were just like, well, Bobby Stevenson is maybe not as much of a stiff as his brother is, but anyway, I think it's good. I think I said it back then, and it's still the same thing now. I think it's good that they're just deciding to release him while he's in a physical prime. He's young. He's young, super athletic. No athlete wants to sit back and let things pass them by. They want to be in there. They want to be doing stuff. So, and it seems, not so, but it seems like Kemp does want to get his hands dirty. He says, I'm ready to go. I'll wrestle anywhere. Anywhere and everywhere. Is he about to hit the indies? Does he want to do a tour of Japan? Is he about to hit up a Pro Wrestling Noah? Well, maybe not Pro Wrestling Noah. Well, maybe so. I don't know. Or All Japan or New Japan. Gonna go hang out in Rev Pro for a while. I mean, good for him, right? If he truly is willing to get out there and wrestle more and get some experience under his belt, well, good for him. And if the idea is for him to eventually go back to WWE, which is the dream for a lot of these people, well, good. It's like, go, not unlike, let's be honest. Well, we'll talk about him in a second. We can talk about him right now. Not unlike Mustafa Ali, who I think everyone is pretty clear that it comes across as pretty clear that he wants to return to WWE one day, right? I think that's the thing. But as it stands right now, look, as far as Ali goes, he is done with TNA wrestling for now. This is something that news that started popping up on the 8th, last Thursday. Again, according to a report from Fightful, Ali posted a farewell letter to the X Division last week on social media after his defeat to Nick Nemeth, but it wasn't fully clear if he was wrapping things up with his tenure overall. He would wrestle, if this is indeed the end, he will have wrestled 20 matches for the company, defending the title, the X Division title, 8 times in that span, in both TNA and some indies. He will have also worked in New Japan. He's going to be working New Japan again in Capital Collision in a couple of weeks. And he lost the title to Speedball Mike Bailey at Slammiversary in what was gearing up to be a match of the year. Let's not revisit that. I mean, I had personally a lot of, I believed that Mustafa Ali was really going to awe everyone, was going to throw us into a state where it's like, oh my God, he is so good. And he's revealing all of these things that we all thought, that we all figured about him, that we all thought he was so good at. He's unfettered, unchained, nothing holding him back. And here is the pure and uncut Mustafa Ali. And while he's been good, the succession of great matches that a lot of us expected, including myself, just wasn't there. And I'm talking great matches. It just wasn't there. The match with Speedball, it could have been so much better if it wasn't for this the stupid references to the Montreal Screwjob. But that's the thing, is that Ali then decided to hit the independents and do this politician gimmick, right? Which is a very WWE thing to do. And I started looking at that and was like, man, I mean, this is a guy who's playing it so that eventually he can get called back to WWE, right? So that he can point to the work he's been doing. And he's saying, look, I want to come back, but look at the character work I'm doing. I can do character work. Everything that Vince thought I couldn't do, I can do now. Look, I proved it. Paul Levesque gives him a call and he runs back. Convinced, 100% convinced. Won't even hesitate. So, while I appreciate the hustle and while his run was not terrible, and here I am talking as if it's done, and because like I said, he's still on the indies. There's no indication that he's heading back to WWE. He's doing a date for Capital Collision against Hiromu Takahashi. When is Capital Collision? It doesn't matter. But so we're not done with him yet. So I'm not trying to eulogize his independent tenure. We're still in it. But I feel like he's missing an opportunity to really let the wrestling shine, but instead he's doing shtick. And he does shtick on the New Japan shows as well. Like the New Japan shows that he's been on, he does it as well with his security guards and whatnot, and it feels tremendously out of place. There's one place that kind of stuff works and catches on, and it's WWE. Why do you think and TNA? So why do you think he's been doing it? Why was TNA such a good fit for him? Because they like that kind of stuff. They're WWE light. They like they love the sports entertainment there. So he was a nice little fit. So he was able to test out this gimmick. He was able to flex his muscles and just go out there and show, hey, I can be the sports entertainer. I don't have to just be the brown guy that jobs to everyone. I can be a complete package here, And he's just waiting for the call. I'm convinced. And I mean, that's fine. That's good for him, right? Don't get me wrong. Good for him. So he's done for TNA for now. Let's see what happens next. We've got some little updates on the Lucha Bros. And there are rumors that they are leaving WWE, which we talked about at length last week. It was let's see here. Yeah, the Rey Fenix. Let's start with this. Rey Fenix on August 9 apparently pulled out of a September indie appearance for El Paso, Texas-based New Era Wrestling. They had booked him for a three-way match with Dastan and Arez for Friday, September 27. This is what the statement from the promotion said. Quote, Rey Fenix will be unable to participate in our Lucha Libre event on September 27th due to personal circumstances. Unquote. Isn't that interesting? Personal circumstances. So that added more fuel to the fire that the Lucha Bros were on their way out. And people have continued to post about it and talk about it. It's been a hot topic of conversation. And I think it was today, Tuesday, the 13th of August, when Penta Zero Miedo took to social media and started complaining to anyone who would listen, essentially, but did start complaining to people that the reports that were going around were just gossip, right? That they were fabrications, they were lies. I think he was responding to Ibu, who had been on top of the situation, Wrestle Purist Ibu. And Penta said, "No more gossip. My present is AEW." Of course, English is not his first language. We understand what he means. He's saying, my present, as in my present, right now, not a gift, is AEW. But what Penta fails to understand, that it's not his present people are talking about. It's not his present that people are interested in. It is his future. Penta, that's what we're interested in. Your future, Pentagram. That's what we're into. We know what your present is. It's the future we're talking about. Penta. So there's still drama going around there. And here's the thing. It's like, look, this situation got the visibility and the traction that it did because this information was being leaked by people. I wouldn't be surprised in the least that the Lucha Bros have been putting this information out there because, there's reports going out there right now, and I think there was one from Fightful saying that people in AEW were a little surprised to see this information end up into print because allegedly, right, reportedly, the AEW had made an offer equivalent to what WWE made for them. Made to them, I should say. So there's a lot of questioning going on right now. It's like, well, what's the deal, pal? What are we doing, because this, I feel since AEW is telling reporters, well, we were taken aback at this. We are kind of surprised to see this in print. Leads me to believe that this information is being leaked by Penta or Phoenix or both. And now they're playing dumb. They're going, wait a second, this is all just gossip, right? They're just being pro wrestlers. And they're thinking maybe we'll be able to get a little extra money out of this. I think that's the play. And don't you think that Pentagram isn't a top tier carny here? He's a Mexican wrestler. He knows what he's doing here. Tommy Billington is also reportedly signed to AEW. The Dynamite Kid, Tommy Billington, who's been on Dynamite a couple of times, notably in a match with Dax Harwood. Of course, the nephew of the legendary Dynamite Kid, Tom Billington, had another Fightful report here saying that according to talent close to Tommy, they say he's been signed by AEW. WWE and NXT had also expressed their interest. Here's the quote. The talent we spoke to also claimed that there was NXT interest in the 23-year-old Billington. We asked about the whereabouts of Mark Billington, which is his tag team in the Dynamite Duo, I think they call themselves. I think it's the Dynamite Duo. The Dynamite Pair. The Dynamite Duo. I think so. And they were told that, and he was injured in December during a match for Dungeon Wrestling. Yeah, look, AEW hasn't confirmed as to whether this signing is legit or not, whether it's full team or tiered per appearance, blah, blah, blah. But good for him. I mean, I've enjoyed his appearances on AEW. He's got the look. He's got the dynamics. Look, he even moves like his uncle, and it's kind of uncanny sometimes. I think it's tremendous. Good for him if he was able to secure a deal with AEW in whatever form it is. And Ninja Mac is done with Pro Wrestling Noah for now, at the very least. On the official, Ninja Mac on August 10 posted the following, in Japanese, and posted the following in Japanese, and here's the translation. Tomorrow's Kawasaki event will be my last with Noah. I want to thank the agency, the wrestlers, and the fans who have given me such wonderful times over the years. My goals, desires, and aspirations led me to this decision. I don't know what the future holds, but when I find what I'm looking for, I'll come back. This is not a permanent farewell, just a farewell for now. And this was later confirmed by the official Noah, or at least the English Noah account, that said the following: Ninja Mac has announced that Monday's event will be his last with Noah, and reiterated this is not a permanent farewell, just a farewell for now. So, I think Ninja Mac, look, as many of you know, I sort of slipped out of Noah all throughout, the last 18 months or so, last year specifically, because I thought the promotion being overrun, becoming one big Kaiji Muto tribute show was really annoying and wasn't great. But Ninja Mac was always a bright spot there, and I think I think overall he's done very good work in New Japan, and it's clearly improved his work as well, because you look at Ninja Mac hanging around GCW 24 months ago as opposed to now, he's a much crisper wrestler. It's been a tremendous experience for him. What's next? I don't know. Is he coming back to the US? Couldn't tell you. Is he going to stick around? Might he get an offer from another company in Japan? Jumping around in promotions in Japan is remarkably easier to do than it is in the United States, and people don't lose their minds over it either. So, look, all I know, if memory serves me right, I think I read somewhere, and I'm trying to remember where. It's not coming back to me, but it seems to me I had read somewhere that Jushin Thunder Liger had taken a liking to him. So if Liger likes him, we just might end up with Ninja Mac in New Japan. I'd be okay with that. You'd be a great addition to the light heavyweight division. What are you talking about? I think he'd be tremendous, and especially they're a couple of bodies short these days. And Yo doesn't seem to be able to keep himself uninjured. And Taiji Ishimori, is also starting to break down. Not as reliable as he once was. So I don't know. Might be an interesting play here, or maybe he's just going to come back to the States. Maybe he has something lined up for him in the US. Good luck to Ninja Mac. So we'll see what happens there. Juggernaut Bloodbath. Nice to see you, and welcome to the show. Let's talk some injuries. Bit of a bummer one to start off. Yoshinari Ogawa is retiring because of an injury. Pro Wrestling Noah announced that the following on their Twitter account, on the Pro Wrestling Noah Global account. Yoshinari Ogawa has decided to retire with immediate effect due to his neck injury. Ogawa, who debuted in 1985, is a former GHC heavyweight, tag, junior heavyweight tag, and junior champion. At Ogawa's strong request, there will be no retirement press conference or ceremony. Boom. That settles that. I mean, look, this is a wrestler, 57 years old. This is a guy who was 57 years old and who could still legitimately go. And he's someone who's been formative for many wrestlers over the years, including Zack Sabre Jr. In a grounded technical style with and done with such crispness and one of the truly great technical wrestlers of the past 30 years or so. And to be going out and on top of that, one of the last links to the old Pro Wrestling Noah, because he was around when he was in the company when Misawa started it up with Akiyama. You know, the Post said that he was a former GHC heavyweight champion. He was the third. He I think he won it off of Jun Akiyama, if I'm not mistaken. You know, this is a guy who has a deep history in Japanese pro wrestling Noah, and it's when I said it was a bummer because it's a bummer that his career is going to end like with a 4-way tag match or whatever it was, or whatever it was on a random Noah. And it's like, no, I can't do this anymore. I think it's a cervical injury that he had. Neck injury, right? Is that what they said? So, I mean, it could be something that was aggravated. It could be so many things. This guy's been wrestling for so long. Yeah, I mean, that to me is huge news. And a big change in the landscape of Japanese professional wrestling. Yuya Uemura is out of the G1, which is quite unfortunate because he was having quite a good run in the G1. New Japan announced, I believe it was on the 10th. Yeah, it was on the 10th that he was injured and would not compete. Moving forward, here's the statement. During his league match with Yota Tsuji in Sendai on August 9, Yuya Uemura sustained an injury to his right arm. And after consultation with New Japan medical staff, it has been determined that Uemura not compete in the remainder of the tournament. So that really sucks. And I'll tell you why it sucks. Because he was having a breakout tournament. As you all know, probably, you should know by this point, I've been doing daily coverage of the G1 Climax 34. So I've been following every night, popping on the microphone thing here and recording recap, review, analysis of what's going on in the G1. And it's the fact that Uemura was coming across as a star here was absolutely a story of the G1. That was absolutely one of the stories coming out of the G1, how he seemed to be rising above the pack of other young guys, the Reiwa 3 and so on and so forth, that he was pulling away from the rest of the pack as a guy who had a crowd connection, who had this great pro wrestling, like just smart, well put together, a great babyface underdog, had all sorts of great qualities, and people were getting really into him, and he was having these great reactions. His point total in the G1 might not reflect it. Like, he was not necessarily on a path to victory, not a clear one anyway. Not saying he couldn't have one, but I don't know but he was clearly not on a direct path to victory. But nonetheless, holy smokes, he was really blowing people away, myself included. I thought he was being absolutely tremendous. This is a solid young guy, showing what he's got. I was very excited, and I'm still excited. Now I'm excited for his return, and hopefully the injury isn't too serious, but serious enough to keep him out of the G1. And I had seen it on the night that he got injured, on the 9th. And I had talked about it on the review. I was like, I wasn't sure if it was a work or not. I was right there. I was saying, look, it probably is a work. Because I didn't want to think the worst. But I was saying, man, the way he was favoring that arm and the way that the match ended was a little odd. Something's up here. Something didn't pass the smell test. I wasn't ready to go all in and say, oh, absolutely, he's hurt. Look, his elbow is pointing inward. Nothing like that. But something was wrong, and I was holding my breath, and I was hoping for the best. That really kind of bums me out. So that sucks. So he's forfeited his spot, obviously. And I talked about this on yesterday's G1 recap, where I went over the possibilities for the final night of Block B, which he was in. Basically, his last match was against Boltin Oleg, so Oleg is going to get an extra 2 points, which was probably going to be 2 points that Yumera was going to win. But thankfully, it doesn't seem like him being out of the tournament is going to affect the overall results. And you can check out more of my analysis on that level if you want to hear more. My recap for night 15 of the G1. There was a lot of there were a lot of scenarios in Block B for advancement that existed, and Yumera didn't seem like a clear-cut winner, but you couldn't really eliminate him either. There were possibilities, but they were very weak. And with him like starting night 16, which would have been, wait, did I say check out? No, it's night 14 you have to check. No, it is night 15 you have to check out. Check out night 15 if you want the deep analysis. But just the fact that he was starting off, that he was in the curtain jerker with Boltin Oleg on night 16, that's usually an indication that you're not going to be much of a player for the rest of the show. Whatever happens, you might not be that important for the end of the show. I don't think I think that as unlucky and awful that the injury is, I think that as a fan, as someone who's enjoying the tournament, it's probably the best possible outcome here, especially so close to the end. If it had been someone who really was going to be qualifying, like, that would have been a disaster. Anyway, you can check that out. And by the way, my coverage is coming soon to an end. I'll be doing a night 16 review tomorrow, and then I'll be doing one last review for the playoffs. And I'll be doing that this Saturday. I'll be combining both nights of the playoffs into one, and that'll be that. So subscribe to the channel if you want to hang out and find out more about the G1. Dakota Kai is out of action again. She has a torn meniscus. It was announced on Raw by Michael Cole that she'll be out 8 to 10 weeks and will be undergoing surgery. So there you go. I mean, she's unlucky. Like, that is she just always injured, and it's always the legs. Team kick. It really sucks, but I mean, at this point, what are you gonna do? And we also got an update to wrap up our injury talk. We got an update on Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, their returns. Both of them have been out of action because of injury issues. Ibushi underwent ankle surgery this January, while Omega had surgery done in May following a bout with diverticulitis. Omega, by the way, has not wrestled since December 2023. In celebration of his 20th anniversary in pro wrestling, he had a 5-minute Ibushi had a 5-minute exhibition for GLEAT last month. He's going to compete in a 6-man tag for DDT Pro Wrestling on August 25. Despite returning to DDT, he tweeted that AEW is his home, and fans will see a full comeback with him and Omega. So Dave Meltzer broke this down on Wrestling Observer Radio a couple of, when was it? It was a couple of days ago on the 8th. This is what he had to say, our boy Dave. Basically, when Kenny Omega returns, Ibushi is returning. He basically said he's under contract there and he's waiting for Omega to return for him to return. I don't know if there's even a date of when Omega will return. Put it this way, I don't think it's so far away as before when I would talk about it and go like, I don't even want to think about it. It's a long ways away. He's getting better. I know that. I actually looked up the surgery he had. Usually for a wrestler, it's about a 4-month recovery. A lot of wrestlers push it and probably come back quicker. But that would be like mid-September. But he had a lot, he just didn't have the hernia problem. I mean, he had a lot of different problems. But like I said, he is coming back. I mean, that's pretty much the word. And I don't think it's like months and months away. I don't want to say this because I feel stupid saying it. But just the vibe I have is it'll be before the end of the year. And before that, it was just like, he'll be back, but who knows when. So I think that's encouraging news, especially if you're a Kenny Omega fan. And if you're an AEW fan as well, I think this is the kind of shot in the arm that AEW would welcome. Getting one of their top stars back. Who wouldn't want that? So we'll see if Nostradamus Dave here if his predictions come to fruition. Wait, before we get into other stuff here, because we're going to be talking a lot of rumors and hearsay here. Maybe you'll enjoy this. I hope you do enjoy it, because I'm ready to enjoy it. There's one thing I want to touch on, because someone talked to me about this today. And I was like, wait, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And I went back and checked for myself. Did you all know that on Monday Night Raw this week, WWE decided to retcon the bracelet thing? Did you hear about this? That they decided to walk back the bracelet angle from SummerSlam? I promise you. Remember SummerSlam? Remember that match that I completely buried? I think it's one of the worst matches I've seen all year. And I went over a lot of the reasons why on my review. Okay, if you liked it, that's fine. I think it's one of the worst things I've seen all year in pro wrestling. And just to recall, right? CM Punk is in a match with hated enemy, vilified, feuding enemy, Drew McIntyre, and he has him up on his shoulders, and he's about to GTS him when he notices that Seth Rollins has around his wrist a bracelet that has the names of CM Punk's wife and his dog, and CM Punk proceeds then to lower Drew McIntyre off of his shoulders, turn to Seth Rollins and say, hey, what are you doing with that? Give me back my bracelet. He sacrificed winning the match so that he could get his bracelet back. We're all in agreement. This is what happened, right? This is what happened. I don't think there's any way you can. This is fact. It's not even opinion. You can't even contest me on this and say, well, Warren, no. The guy had the match won. He had the guy up on his shoulders, his mortal enemy, the guy he's been essentially feuding with since November last year. And he's got him up on his shoulders and he puts him down to go get a bracelet. This is something that happened. And I, as Chad is pointing out, burying this match was an understatement. You know, I completely demolished it. I think it was an awful piece of business. Little Cuz, nice to see you and welcome. Very nice to see you. So, CM Punk this week, and I don't have the exact quotes, but I pulled up the old DVR because I DVR the Raws and the SmackDowns and the NXTs. I keep them, I record them, and then if someone, there's some buzz or someone goes and tells me, hey, you gotta watch it, well, then I can just pull it up, right? And I pull it up, and CM Punk is in the ring, and he's got the mic, and he's cutting the promo, and he's saying, I don't care about the bracelet. You can keep the bracelet. What was sad to me was that my wife's name and my dog's name were in your mouth or something to that effect. You can keep the bracelet. It's not the bracelet. It's what the bracelet represents. That's what he said. Okay? So he's essentially walking back everything that happened on the pretext of, like he said, I don't care about the bracelet. It's what the bracelet represents. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. We all knew that. Phil, we get it. And these are the same, he's basically saying what a lot of WWE fans were saying to people close to me, or even to myself, where it was like, yeah, but it's not the bracelet, it's what it represents. I know what it is. I know what we're doing here. I know the bracelet is a symbol. I know it's not like the fucking Maltese Falcon. It's not, it's not the crown jewels. It's just a little plastic thing, little plastic beads, connected together with some silly string or whatever the hell. Yeah. And I know it's not the bracelet itself. I know it's what it represents. I'm not stupid. And people are explaining this to me as if they've had this great revelation, as if they figured out, how season 2, they figured out how season 2 of House of the Dragons is going to finish, right? So I'm like, no, I get it. And I really do. And I don't understand why you can't, I don't understand. The thing that I don't understand is why you think this will make me appreciate it more, because the execution was terrible. It's exactly what I said. I understand that it's a symbol, but the execution is terrible because CM Punk decided to throw a match to get a bracelet. So I understand. Don't worry. I get it. But it was still shit. You can have, you can write poetry and create, great metaphors just like this one, but your poem can still be shit. And you can sit there and tell me, well, the tree with the eagle on top represents my lack of self-confidence. I am the tree and the eagle is staring. Okay, but your poem stinks. You know what I mean? Hey, Echo Flare, nice to see you, man. And Jonas Tiger, nice to see you as well. So now they're walking this back. The bracelet, which has been a topic of discussion for the past, since SummerSlam, is being brought up, which we could assume for the last time. We assume this will be the last time we will be talking about the bracelet. But all they've been doing is talking about this fucking bracelet. That's what it represents. Yes, I get it, and it still stinks. Because it's poorly done. Because it's pro wrestling. It's pro wrestling. It's not a Scorsese film. It's not, it's not a Lars von Trier film. Okay? It's fine. And you know what? Here's the thing. It stunk. The execution of it stunk. And you know who else knew it stunk? CM Punk himself. And I can tell you, I know. I just know in the bottom of my heart, after following this man in his career for years, and everything that he said in interviews and shoot interviews, there was no way, and I said it during the SummerSlam review. I said it. I almost feel like I should be taking a victory lap here. I told you, there is no way Phil Brooks is proud of this. There's no way. And you want to know why I'm convinced it stinks? Because during the segment on Raw, CM Punk started whipping Drew McIntyre with his belt. What are we doing then? What are we inching towards to? A strap match maybe? Now this is getting into Phil's wheelhouse. This is what we're getting into. This is something that CM Punk is going to be like, yeah. This is what the guy on the night before SummerSlam, where he promised uncomfortable violence. It's that guy that probably politicked his way, pushed hard to have something that will resonate with him, that will go right into the things that he loves in pro wrestling, such as a strap match. I bet he politicked hard to have this public disavowal of the bracelet and all the bracelet bullshit. Maybe he started thinking about Terry Funk and Tracy Smothers, and he just shook his head in shame. Maybe he said it to himself, I can't keep taking marching orders from the idiot's son-in-law anymore. Tremendous. Like, I can't in good faith take a victory lap here because I don't know what's going on in CM Punk's head. I couldn't tell you. But this is how it feels. It feels like a victory lap. It feels like I got it, like I nailed it. And now not only is he coming back with the continuation of this feud, but it's like, no, there's no bracelets. And by the way, we're probably setting up a strap match. Just like Terry Funk would do. Just like Harley Race would do. I still can't believe they decided to go with the bracelet though. I even to 2 weeks removed now, right? And I'm still thinking about it like right now, and I'm like, what a bizarre, awful match. And they're retconning this. You know what? They're retconning this exactly like they retconned Cody offering up the Rock to Roman instead of him. They're finagling, they're creating, oh no, this was always supposed to be it. It was never the bracelet it represented. Fuck you. It was always yes, it was the symbolism, but WWE likes to hammer subtlety over the head with a sledgehammer. They want to make sure that you understand that you're not sitting there scratching your head going, what's going on? Because pro wrestling is such a difficult thing to understand, right? So of course it was about the bracelet. And they're doing the exact thing with Cody. When Cody absolutely went to ringside on SmackDown and said, I'm not coming after you, Roman. It's this guy. And he gives his spot to The Rock. Because on the Raw before, you all recall, Seth pitched the idea of Cody going for the consolation prize instead of the Universal Championship. Or whatever it was called. The Undisputed, whatever it was. Like, it's the same thing, folks. It's the same thing. And people will tell me that this storytelling is impeccable. It's perfect. But they do things and they see it doesn't work. And then instead of just addressing it and making it, we're going to try and make this make sense. just like they tried to make the Cody and Roman thing work afterwards when they realized that people were turning on The Rock. Hell, they had to make a documentary to explain, to retcon what happened, to try and pass it off as this was all part of the plan. And nonetheless, even in that documentary, The Rock was there. No, I decided that this was a good idea. I thought that this was great. I said we should do this. The people decided, and I went with it. It was my decision. Oh my God. So they're retconning this. And I still think my theory, and it's actually even much more compounded now. My theory that they shoehorned Seth Rollins into this. Because let's be honest, there was no need for a special guest referee. No need at all. And they shoehorned Seth in here because I'm convinced Seth was angry that he wasn't on the show. And went up to old Paul and was like, and bitched. And they were like, okay, toss him into the match. I'm convinced it was shoehorned in. Why? Why am I convinced now more than ever? Because the next night on Raw, he was written off the show. Because they had Bronson Reed, belly flop him multiple times, and he was taken out on a stretcher or whatever, Now he's off injured, like some time off or whatever. They wrote him off. And people were telling me, but Warren, this is a way to set up future matches between Punk and Drew. And I'm like, I understand. I'm not an idiot. It still feels shoehorned. And now the fact that we're not even following up with Drew versus Seth or Punk versus Seth. Seth is gone. And Seth is actually going to be in another program when he comes back. He's going to have Bronson Reed waiting for him. Do you see how much all of this was a waste of time? All the things that you thought this match should deliver are not delivering. It's nothing. I promise you, it's one of the worst matches of 2024. Guaranteed. I can't think of a wrestling match this year that has been so terrible in its execution and so meaningless in its outcome. And what puts it over the top for me as being one of the a top 3 worst match of the year is because this was done in the hottest feud that WWE had going into SummerSlam, Drew and Phil, CM Punk. This match was a layup. They just had to go in and beat the piss out of each other. That's all people wanted. That's all was required here to get this match over. You didn't need shenanigans or bracelets or Seth Rollins going, fight, go ahead and fight. It's fine, you can fight. That's my Seth Rollins impersonation, which I'm debuting tonight. It was the hottest feud that this company had, and they completely blew it. Now they're going to try and heat it back up with a stipulation. Good for them. But there's a lot of air that's been left out of that's been released from this balloon, let me tell you. On my front, anyway, just wanted to share that little tidbit with you. Here's another little mystery for you. Jade Cargill. Like, where is this high impact, assured number 1 superstar? Where is she? What are they doing? Where has she been? Like, I'm being facetious because I know she had a match recently, and she lost her qualifier for the Queen of the Ring to Nia Jax. But I myself said, the WWE is the perfect spot for her to become a star, and all of the WWE fans were losing their shit when she joined us. Finally, she looks like a star. She's being acted, where her entire gimmick is pretty much the exact same thing. Her presentation is the exact same thing as an AEW. Even down to the fact that her theme song is a knockoff of her AEW theme song. And what has she been doing? Let's ask old cagey match then, right? When in doubt, yes, cage match. Let me pull this up here. We got this. Put this up here. Jade Cargill. Okay. We'll go to matches. And let's sort this. Year 2024 for World Wrestling Entertainment. What was the other one? Oh, Chris Jericho's rocking Rager at Sea. Look at this. Is your All Elite Wrestling, World Wrestling Entertainment, and Chris Jericho's Rockin' Wrestling Rager at Sea. Those are some promotions, and I'm looking for singles matches. Okay, we know we've done the holy smokes. Five matches. Chelsea Green squash, 32 seconds. Piper Niven in the Queen of the Ring qualifier, the first round. Then in the quarter, she got knocked out. 2 minutes, 38 seconds. She has a house show match against Isla Dawn. And then she has a match with Alba Fire on last week's SmackDown, 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Do you think WWE has buyer's remorse? Do you think they're like, well, because I remember, and I'm sure you do too, the discussion, the discourse around it, and especially Triple H, was saying things to the effect that, we sent her to the PC because we want to give her time to get more seasoned or whatever. We want to train her the right way or whatever. Like he was taking some subtle shots, saying, AEW didn't know how to train her. We do in our multi-million-dollar facility that has pumped out innumerable superstars. We know how to do it, right? And they were so confident, and they were having her walk out of limousines and all of that. When's the last time Jade came out of a limousine? When's the last time she walked out of a limousine? And I'm not taking necessarily pleasure in this, right? Because I'm on record multiple times saying I hope Jade finds success in WWE because she has the best, it is her best shot at becoming a superstar because they are better equipped to deal with a superstar, right? With someone with that type of potential. Where in AEW, you kind of have to know how to carry yourself in the ring to get yourself over. WWE fans don't care as much if you look cool walking out of a limousine. But I think WWE might be having some buyer's remorse here. I don't think they're all that excited about this. And even in the tag team situations where, such as Chad is talking about, she's been extremely sloppy. The WrestleMania match wasn't anything fantastic. I mean, look, like chat says, Jade Cargill, she is what she thought. She is what we thought she was. And I mean, we tried to warn people, just like we tried to warn people with Pillman Jr. We're like, well, y'all are excited because, oh, we took one off of AEW, but you know, and then WWE does the usual thing. They'll get the flash in the pan attention and they'll hammer it home, right? Jade Cargill, star, blah blah blah, and then they put her forward, and then they have her show up on NXT, and then she's walking out of limousines and all that. And Pillman Jr. They do, there's press articles about his legacy and his dad and so on and so forth, and then when they actually have him show up on the show, they have him take the name of the guy who abused his mother, and he completely like tosses away his father's legacies. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. So you're like, what are we even doing here? There's no rhyme or reason. None of this makes sense. And Jade is supposed to be like this great revolution, but I think they're realizing is that she can't work. She just can't work. And I've said it before, Jade is kind of at her age, and I'm not saying that she's old by any stretch of the imagination. She's 32, right? Yeah, she's 32. What you see is what you get with Jade at this stage in a wrestler's career. Who are the people who rated her 10 out of 10? Who are these four dorks who went on Cage Match and gave Jade Cargill 10 out of 10? Is there a way to sort the 10s? No, these are the latest comments. Who are these people? How does this make sense? Listen to this review on this review on Cage Match. How does this make sense for a 9 out of 10 review? Okay, Jade is green as grass, but her appearance and athleticism are the ones that don't give me to put a 0 for her. He outright says she's green and her appearance can't make me give her a 0. Well, you can give her a whole bunch of numbers before getting to 9. She also needs to train her promo skill, obviously. Her ring abilities is quite adequate for a rookie, but I think her work might be better if she begins to love her job. How is this a 9 out of 10 review? Oh, they're updates. Okay. So he's been updating his rating? When she quit AEW, let's update too. This is the most recent update I see now. When she quit AEW and came to WWE, she began intensive wrestling training. Oh, really? Really, pal? I had no doubt that Jade had the it factor. I just think Tony Khan doesn't care about Cargill's wrestling skill. A lot of people don't. And on Royal Rumble, she showed the fruits of labor. She did jack shit at Royal Rumble. She threw some people around, and then she got tossed. Like, oh, come on. Like, anyway, I want to know. Oh, here's a 10. Here's a 10 right here. Well, but this is a 2023 one. I don't want to. It's too far back. Look at these dorks. Like, I think the 0s are unfair, or the 1s. 2s. I think that's unfair, but holy smokes. Yeah, intensive. Anyway, I don't know. It's just the thought. Like, this is the beat of the podcast tonight. It's just like thoughts going through my head. What can Warren talk about? That's just going through his mind right now. Hey, Jade Cargill. What's up with her? Topic. Here we go. So Danielson, as we all know, is putting his career on the line at Wembley Stadium for AEW All in 2024. And that has led to a lot of speculation because Danielson has been saying for the better part of this year, for the better part of the year, he's been saying, this is my last year as a full-time wrestler. And he made a point to remind us a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite that he had promised his daughter when she turned 7 that he'd stop wrestling full time. And he wants to hold on to his promises, etc., etc., etc. And it's all very heartwarming and touching. And, he's one of the all-time greats. He's banged up, his neck, all of these things here. And, there has been some speculation, and I think it's good speculation to be like, well, maybe Danielson will not be, maybe Danielson will be ending his career. He is wrapping up, and he keeps talking about his neck, so maybe he is wrapping it up. So maybe this is a way to go out with a bang, go to AEW's biggest show of the year and have everyone in attendance say, Bryan, we don't go. Thank you, Bryan, all that stuff. Now, I have not been convinced that this is what they're going, this is the plan for Danielson. Like, when the match was announced on the Dynamite review, I said that I think it's weird, and not unlike when Will Ospreay won his match against Danielson, his tremendous match of the year, candidate match earlier this year against Danielson, where he won, but Danielson was selling the neck, and the story at the end of the match was Danielson is hurt, and we have, medical personnel all around him. That sort of put a damper on the finish of this great match, because you were like, well, we want to cheer for Will, but Danielson is hurt, and he might be legitimately hurt because he's such a top guy, So we're all, so I said it myself. I don't think the smart move is having Danielson lose at Wembley, because I think it would hurt Swerve. It would be a quote unquote big moment for Swerve, but the emotion in the building would drop for Swerve, because, oh my God, we just watched one of the greatest of all time get pinned, a beloved figure in pro wrestling get pinned, and it's done. It's like, oh, should we be cheering for Swerve? No, because we feel bad that Danielson's done, right? So it would just create an environment where you wouldn't have the best reaction, the best final feeling at the end of the show for the main event. So I wasn't already sold on it. But now I'm convinced, and everyone's taking my $10 bet, because the name of the stream, right, that I set up here tonight was $10 says Danielson is winning at Wembley. And I think I bet too low. I'd even go as far as bet 20. I'd bet $20. 20 American dollars on top of that. Screw my Canadian rubber bucks. 20 greenbacks. Because I think Danielson is 100% winning at Wembley now. I'll tell you why. On Collision, he had a sit-down interview with Jim Ross. And he started talking about his neck. He started talking about how, I'm going to need neck injury soon. Neck surgery soon, excuse me. Here's the quote. And even the way I feel right now, I mean, odds are I'm going to have to get neck surgery before the end of this year. That's the reality of it. And that's kind of something I have accepted. It's coming down the pike relatively soon. Okay. Are you just convinced because of that, Warren? No. There's more. On August 12th, Danielson shows up on his wife's podcast, on the Nikki and Bree show. And they talk about the all in and the stipulation that if he wins, if Swerve wins, Danielson will never win again. All that stuff. And Danielson, it's easier for him to imagine his future without pro wrestling. Here is the quote. There's this small portion of our kids' lives where they actually want us there. Soon, and I see it with my friends and my sister and all that kind of stuff, all of a sudden, Birdie, she's 7 now, she's going to turn into a teenager and she's going to have other things. Now she wants daddy there all the time, and I want to be there for that. And also, my body is broken down. The odds are I'm probably going to have neck surgery before the end of the year. This pro wrestling thing, it's been incredible, and it's hard to imagine my life without it for the past 25 years, but it's a lot easier to imagine my life going forward without me wrestling. It's actually hard for me to imagine me keeping doing this, especially with the last year. I've had herniated discs in my back, tore my labrum in my shoulder, and I broke my arm, which required a rod and 9 screws. And then I had 2 fractures in my orbital bone. And now I just recently hurt my neck really bad, and that was in April. So it's all like, it's like all of these things. When I started at AEW, I'm like, I'm invincible, and then it turns out maybe not so invincible. Now, I don't dispute that he's been injured, and some of them are indeed documented. They've been talked about. The broken arm, the labrum. I'm not disputing that Danielson that his body has been through hell. Okay? And is broken down. I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that his neck might be I don't dispute any of this. But I do not buy for a second anything he's saying right now. Because Danielson is a prime worker. He is a worker. He loves to lie, and he's good at it. And he knows what to lie about to get reactions from the audience. Remember, his first match back in WWE, all the way back then when he returned from being suspended, right? From being retired, not suspended, retired. He comes back, he has his match, and during the match, what does he do? He lands like awkwardly, like on his upper back, and then he starts clasping the neck and hurt. And I remember watching it, and my stomach was in knots. I was like, oh shit. I remember. He got me. I was like, oh, what is he doing? What are we doing? What are we doing here? You know? And then, next thing you know, he's back the next week, and he's finishing the match. Everything is fine. And he's back, and he keeps doing it, and he keeps doing it. And he always goes back to the neck when he's selling, grabbing his neck. Because he knows we know, and he knows we have concern for him, and that's his job. It's to elicit emotion. That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to make us feel, oh man, and you've got your insides are all tied up. And you're reading this and you're like, man, I don't want Danielson to go. And yes, he should spend time with his children. And yes, oh my God, he has to have surgery. Why is all of this surgery talk suddenly popping up? Why is it that Danielson suddenly started talking about his contract 2 weeks ago, but we haven't heard any updates as to whether he's resigning or not? We haven't heard a thing. Why is that? His contract is supposed to be up, according to him, right? You remember? It was like on the first Dynamite, wasn't it on July 31st? Yeah, that makes sense. The promo where Strickland came out to confront him, right? And he was saying, my contract comes up tomorrow. That's what Danielson was saying. I'm like, isn't it odd that this is coming up now? Isn't it odd that we're talking about the requirement of having neck surgery before the end of the year. We're talking about this now. Isn't it convenient that he's reminding everyone in the ring that, Birdie, which I don't doubt. And here's the thing about Birdie, okay? Here's the thing about wanting to be around his daughter more, okay? Consider the AEW schedule. Danielson goes into work 2 times a week. Granted, there's travel, but he goes to work twice a week. We're not doing the WWE, the WWF, WWE house show loops. We're not doing Raw and SmackDown, and then a Saturday night house show, and then maybe even one on Sunday too, then Monday, then going back, then coming back to work on Friday. Like it's not as strenuous as we'd like to believe. And Danielson comes off as the type of guy who, if he decides not to come, if he decides to get some time off, he'll get the time off. I understand what he's saying, and he's playing off this feeling, this knowledge that we have as wrestling fans, that we know that wrestlers sacrifice so much to hit the road and cross, go across the country, up and down, all around, for months on end, and they don't see their kids. They miss birthday parties. At least not in AEW. It's not the same thing anymore. It's not 1994, and you're wrestling 4 or 5 nights a week anymore across the country. Like, it's not that anymore. You're not running from territory to territory back in the 80s. It's just not that anymore. At least not in AEW. So I understand it's a nice sentiment, but I also don't buy it. I don't buy it. I think these are all great tools to generate sympathy, to generate anticipation. But I'll tell you, I will be shocked if Wembley Stadium in a couple of weeks doesn't have its final match, the main event, end with Bryan Danielson up on the top turnbuckle, hoisting the AEW World Championship as the final countdown plays throughout the stadium. I would be shocked if it doesn't finish that way. I'm telling you, it's Bryan Danielson. He's a fantastic. I'm sure you all had a visual pop into your head. I'm sure you all had the visual pop into your head right now. Of 50,000, that's about what they have, right? 55,000 people. 55,000 people, Wembley Stadium, enormous crowd, capacity. Everyone's going nuts. Final countdown blaring. I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. The word on the street is that for All Out, this is a rumor. The word on the street says that for All Out, the match is going, the match that they're going for is Swerve vs. Hangman. Swerve vs. Hangman doesn't need a title. It really doesn't. I have, look, Danielson is a prime worker and he knows all that he's doing. And I do not doubt that he's banged up, but the last year that he had was a career year, right? Since last year, everywhere he's wrestled, the people he's wrestled, the matches he's had, right up until what? Ospreay, Zach? And you've noticed he has calmed down a little bit. He's not running back to CMLL to have another go at Blue Panther, or which is something he wanted to do. He wanted to have another crack at him, you know. Now he's slowing down. You've noticed, right? You've all noticed. He's been having matches nonetheless, but not these high caliber, intense, career defining staples, Last year was his dream match tour. He wanted to wrestle in the Tokyo Dome. He wrestled in the Tokyo Dome. He went to Arena Mexico to wrestle his idol. It's like that. That was all. Well, that was this year, not last year, and so was the Tokyo Dome. You get what I'm saying. It all started last year. There's things that he says. I don't remember in which interview he said, I wanted to, I was so jazzed up after Forbidden Door. I was like, I'm doing the G1, and I was, wanted to do the G1, and I was like, yeah, let's go. I want to do the G1. I want to be in the G1. And then I was like, well, maybe it's not a good idea. The G1, it's a grueling thing. It's a grueling tournament. And Danielson wouldn't half-ass it. So all I'm saying is that the fact that Danielson is going out into the world and is talking about his injuries, and he's talking about retiring, and he's talking about how he needs to spend time with his daughter, and especially when he says it's easier to imagine life going forward without me wrestling. They're all lovely sentiments, but I think they're also kind of bullshit. All lovely sentiments, but a lot of bullshit, if you ask me. So I'm putting it down. I'm sticking it in the fire. Ooh. I believe Bryan Danielson is winning at Wembley Stadium, and there's too much compelling evidence to the opposite. Unless there is something completely wild that happens, like, chat's pointing out, Triple H tampering with contracts. I'd be shocked. I don't think Triple H is that stupid, I don't think Triple H is that dumb. And Tony Khan wouldn't stand for it. And honestly, I don't think Danielson would do that. Like he's a worker, but he's also a businessman. And whenever he talks about AEW, it's always, he keeps putting over how happy he is. And there's certain things, and you can oftentimes tell it in his voice. And when there's certain things that really do feel from the heart, and that he's not working. There's times where he is. But I feel like when he talks about AEW, when he was recently saying that the past 3 years were the best 3 years of his career, were the most fun that he's had in his career, I believe it. I know it's a little joke, but it's interesting because it's the kind of thoughts that can cross minds. I know chat is saying, oh, it was just a little joke, but I'm not going, you're so fucking wrong. I'm not shaming anyone, but because it is an interesting, it is a thought that is entertained. It's like, oh, maybe they're tampering with his contract. Well, maybe, but that would shock me more than anything else. Then again, it's pro wrestling after all. But look, It's a Warren Hayes promise that Bryan Danielson will be your new AEW World Heavyweight Champion as we leave merry old England. I think we're going to wrap up this episode of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. How about that? I think we're just about done here. I think we've covered everything. We're going to wrap it up for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this, off-kilter, interesting little show that I pulled off tonight. I appreciate everyone showing up. And hey, one last pitch. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, leave a like here on the video and subscribe if it's your first time here, or leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or a 5-star rating on Spotify if it's your first, if you're listening to this on the audio side of things. That would also be tremendous. I will be back tomorrow to wrap up the last night of block action for the G1. So tomorrow being Wednesday when I'm recording this, but probably on the same day you're listening to this if you're listening on demand. So I'll be back with that a little later on today. And then back on Thursday for the AEW Dynamite review. So thank you all very much for listening, and I will see you next time.